Welcome back, Sins and Commandments alike. This is Griever, your guys' host as always, bringing you guys the latest episode review of NnT, Wrath of the God. So, the other day, in my new Discord, go check that out, guys. Link will be in the description down below. Some people, of course, were spoiling, or not spoiling, but when the episode first dropped and stuff like that, and of course I already know how the story goes, so I'm not really worried about that myself. I check the spoilers tag and I go into that chat. There were some release pictures, there were some stills that I saw, and I went, oh no. And to be fair, there are still some very poorly animated shots. There are some that it's like, come on, this is kind of abysmal. However, for the most part, so when I went into this episode, from that experience, from just seeing one or two stills and going, how did they mess that up? How did they butcher this? This is going to go from bad to worse again. I watched the episode, and this is a key point in the story. This is a great character point, and it's a lot of information for us especially, and a lot of people love Wheelchair Gother, as he's been affectionately called for a long time. Real Gother, Demon Gother, Wheelchair Gother, those are the usual terms. In this episode, though, I went into that very skeptical, and I was pleasantly surprised because I liked the episode. I enjoyed it. I don't really think I need to go through this scene by scene, but for a quick overview, pretty much, Wheelchair Gother is here, shows up, he explains, okay, this Gother is a doll, all this fun jazz. We already know this from the manga. He believes King and Deanne in Dolar and Gloxinia's forms, basically saying, yeah, okay, I get it. So he's like, I plan to end this holy war. I care nothing for the Ten Commandments or the demons or this holy war or anything. I'm planning to end it. He's a very intellectual person. He's an interesting character. I really like his voice acting, though I don't speak Japanese. I really liked what they did here. Hopefully they can bring that same level of quality for the English dub. Another big thing is very little. I didn't notice any censorship. There might have been, but there was plenty of blood, lots of blood everywhere. And though it's not as gruesome as the manga portrays it, that could have been done better. That's down to an animation thing, not a censoring issue. It's an animation issue because it was still handled well. There was lots of blood and stuff. Pretty much we know that Ro and the other humans were attacking everyone. Kind of doesn't make sense really when you consider that these things are goddesses and giants and everything, and a handful of humans managed to slaughter them all. Sure, catch a few by surprise, but there's a lot of people there. Like, really? These miserable I don't know. It just doesn't seem right to me. But either way, it boils down to the fact that Ro is covered in blood. He's being injured and stuff, and Jahard, he's still trying to talk to Jahard, saying like, no, stop it, Ro, stop this madness sort of idea. And he's like, no, Stigma must go, all that stuff. And in the end, the other humans start, like, he's hesitating to attack her. The other humans, they attack her instead. They slash her across the eye. They cut her wings off. They massacre her legs and all that stuff. And we know that King left the conversation. Deanne said, I'm going to stay behind and talk to Gother a little bit more, both Gothers. King left in Gloxinia's body saying, I gotta go, I gotta figure this stuff out, right? Because he knows about what happened. So he's heading there thinking, is this my trial? I failed to protect the lane once. Do I, to pass my trial, do I need to protect Jahard? Is that my trial? He realizes, wait a minute, Jahard is alive 3,000 years ago. So Gloxinia didn't fail to protect her. So what's the reasoning here? We do see what happens, and it's kind of gruesome. Like, this is a really good, once again, the soundtrack wasn't perfect, but it was good. The OSTs used were fine, not like blow you away movie to tears, but the scenes were done pretty well for the most part. Faraway shots were kind of bad. There was still, as I said, there was some animation, just like the quality, you can tell that they didn't have a whole lot of time or budget, but it's not as abysmal as some of the other episodes. And the lead up to this scene with Gloxinia confronting Ro, and we get a nice conversation between Ro and Jahard. It feels expanded. I didn't reread the manga chapter, but I feel like this whole thing has been somewhat expanded than it was in the manga. I'm not sure if we actually see that it was the humans that slaughtered Jahard. Like, it's left to interpretation. Like, I don't remember him fighting that like awesome looking goddess with the beard and stuff. I don't remember that. But once again, been a while since I reread this chapter, right, or chapters. That being said, very nice touching scene. We find out why Ro did it and stuff. It's basically they helped a demon, and Stigma came and basically slaughtered the village without question. Just slaughtered everyone. All their friends, the parents. There was a handful of them left. They massacred the village for one little demon who was injured. They took him in. They fed him. He was nice. And so they were just like, nope, we're going to get our revenge on Stigma. They hate Stigma. So now we have probable cause. We have a reasoning. And I can kind of get behind that reasoning because here, after Rogue gets his revenge, the only thing they could think of, all the anger and sadness and hatred. Remember, negative emotions, it's harder to feel positive emotions than negative emotions are called such because it's so easy to be ensnared and trapped. That's why a lot of people suffer from different types of stresses, anxieties, depressions, all these things, because it's tempting. It's like an addiction. Negative thoughts are similar to any type of addiction where it's harder to fight that type of thing, It's harder to feel happy. It's harder to look on the glass half full. It's hard to look on the bright side of things. It's so much easier, quicker, easier, as Yoda would say about the dark side. It's quicker and easier to just not give a shit, not care, give in to these negative thoughts. Because fighting these thoughts takes twice the amount of effort. And sometimes people give up. Sometimes people are done. Sometimes people fight for their whole lives for this type of thing, and they give in one day, and that one day wrecks. Potentially, it's just a slip. Sometimes it's catastrophic. It's up to that. So either way, that's the way I've interpreted this for a very long time, and I feel like this is a perfect example now because Ro, once he does this, once he realizes how far they've gone and realizes, wait a minute, I basically just did the same thing. I did the exact same thing. The thing that fueled all our anger, we just posed against someone else. Yes, our anger was justified. Our hatred, our contempt, all these feelings, I'm not arguing that they're justified, neither did Ro, but to go about it this way. It's not like they went after and attacked they attacked soldiers, sure, but innocent people like Jahard and people like that. I mean, she says that her sin and stuff, and they're laying there against the tree all battered and bloody, the only two left alive of this massacre, and she's talking about how she knew or she had a feeling or something. The atrocities that Ludashel was bringing about, she could have stopped it, she could have stepped up, and that basically she believes that the blood of all those demons are on her hands as well, that she's also partly responsible for it just as bad as anybody else is that knew about the plan. And you have and they're basically just comparing wounds at this point, pretty much realizing that they're both now have sins on their self, and I mean that's the series. So very good build up, very good way to transition into this scene. Now this is the scene that I got the stills from. The scene is still handled very well and still very gruesome. And actually it's not nearly as bad as I thought when it's animated. It's alright, but it's still not good. Gloxinia shows up. Well, King shows up and his face goes white and he looks and he's just like, what? Like looking at his sister, his sister in this case. And King, remember, he's fueled also by, don't think it's ever particularly stated, but there needs to be some feeling of you are in Gloxinia's body. There is going to be some measure of Gloxinia still there. I know that's not touched upon and that's just a theory, but because King does kind of lose his shit nonetheless. And this is Jahard. Of course, he knows Jahard in his timeline and stuff, but he even says, let go of my sister and all this stuff, like he's not having any of this, and he's just like, what did you do, sort of idea. And Jahard tries to basically say, like, brother, no, stop. And Ro's like, no, forget it. If I reincarnate one day, foreshadowed somewhat, but if I reincarnate one day, I hope, I'll protect you always. Drops Jahard and basically is about to take the attack. this is all done well. The prep up to that, Gloxinia King, he summons the spirit spear, and he's just like, bro, and he launches it, and then he sees a smile. He remembers or I think it's later on in the episode, not sure when, but he remembers the whole Bond thing. I think he does this twice. He remembers Bond having the same smile that Ro has right now, being like, and back in the necropolis and stuff like that, back in season 1. And he's remembering this and realizing how wrong he was, that he misinterpreted this entire thing due to his grief, due to his emotions. And now he realizes he might be making the same mistake again, and he halts the spear right before Ro dies. Now, I like this concept, wish it was used more here, because basically, even though he stopped, and he's like, no, I can't do it, he looks up, and boom, Ro's, like, he stopped the spear, but Ro's body is still, like, there's only legs left. It's been disintegrated. And, King's like, wait, what? And then he looks behind him, and we see the worst drawn thing I think I've seen since that Meliodas eye thing of Gloxinia, the real Gloxinia. What really happened, where he slaughtered, he went rage, he went postal, he's tear-stricken, he's filled with rage, and he just blasted Ro without waiting. King comes back, this was the trial, and the history, of course, attempted to correct itself. It's explained, and I really like this concept, kind of wish it was used more once again, is that history will always attempt to try to correct itself. You basically saying, you strayed too far. He's like, wait, so that was my trial? He goes, basically, if you had kept following exactly what I did, you would have been trapped. Basically, you would have had to live my life. And eventually, our souls, it's left ambiguous what would have happened then, but I guess King basically eventually would have died, because he said your body here would have eventually died from this. But because you strayed from my decisions so black and white, you didn't kill Ro, I murdered his ass. History can't have that. History has power over all of us, and basically said it had to correct itself. So it rejects your soul in my body 3,000 years ago. Interesting concept. There are weird plot holes with that, but really interesting idea anyways. And so it rejects King from Gloxinia's body. The timeline corrects itself with Gloxinia still slaughtering him, and King is reverted back to his original body. King asks about this trial and basically says, so does that mean I made the right decision? And Gloxinia clarifies and says, no, not necessarily. It's not that it was right or wrong. You can't look at it that way. It's that you made a different decision than I did. Something so clear. And they talk about Ro and why he didn't and all that stuff. Pretty much he says, at the end of the day, I didn't even check if Jahard was alive. I was so fueled with rage and sadness. I ended up fighting. I hated stigma. I hated the humans who did this to my sister and my people. So he just went postal, and he ended up becoming one of the 10 Commandments before he even knew what happened. You can kind of see that, grief-stricken people like that, they're in a turmoil. They don't even recognize themselves in the mirror at this point. I really wish this had been done better, because this is a harrowing manga panel. It's a harrowing image, and this could have been handled, even extended to a point that's just like, could have had a couple of shots, and they could have handled the entire scene so much better, to make it really feel like, god damn, like, whoa, this should have had some horror level elements in it, and it did not. So a little disappointing there, but the episode overall, once again, was really good. After that, that's basically all we get there on King's side of things, and Jahard and Ro and stuff. So Ro died. We now know why Jahard wears the things and doesn't really seem to have wings and all that stuff and floats all the time, because she doesn't really have legs, she doesn't have wings, and she's missing an eye, or it's sliced all to hell. Either way, so that's why she ends up the way she ends up, and so now we know their story. After this, we jump back over to Deanne, because Deanne's still, of course, in Droll's body, and he's still talking, or she's still talking to the two Gothers, realizing all about friendship. They summarize what Deanne needs to do about Gother and stuff like that. Basically say, could you please be Gother's friend? Clearly, because he learns that he was successful. He's like, basically, I have a plan to end the Holy War. And he's like, wait a minute. So 3,000 years from now, is the Holy War still raging on? Deanne's like, no. 3,000 years ago, the war ended. And so he takes that as, I must have done something right then. I'm not going to die for nothing, because he's running a gamble. But now Wheelchair Gother knows it's going to work because there's someone from the future saying, around this time, the war ended. So even if what he necessarily did, we never really figured that out. I mean, it's assumed what happened, but it's not, like, we kind of know, but we kind of don't. Like, I thought there was more to it. Anyway, it just feels like, I don't know, something about it. I always thought there was like a second layer to it, and just in case you guys are anime only, don't want to spoil anything for you guys. But yeah, so pretty much says, could you please befriend Gother? Clearly you know him as a doll. He has this, it's a nice scene, you know, where Gother basically talks to doll Gother and basically says, I'm going to have to leave you now and stuff. Gother starts to cry and just like, is it because I'm a doll? Is it because I'm this? Is it because I'm that? It's like, no, of course, I pour as much as my soul and heart into you as I can. You have your own heart. You need to, like, find your own way and all this stuff. It's some cliche stuff, but it's really nice. It fits the character, and once I hope, I don't know if they will, but if they animate the big 45-page special featuring Gother and his past from this point in the anime, that will show you guys why Gother went from a character, for me personally, my least favorite sin, up until, well, not my favorite, but probably one of the best backstories, if not the best. Well-rounded, three-dimensional character, and started to really appreciate the character and really enjoy the character and love the character for what it is. So that all happens. Basically, Zeldris comes down from on high. The executioner is here, and he shows up, and that's pretty much the end of the episode. Now, as I said, the Wheelchair Gother stuff is pretty good. A little lengthy, but this was more of a focus on the Gloxinia side of things, right? This was more focused on Gloxinia and that story. I mean, we get a little bit about doll Gother and stuff like that, but you know, we don't really find out. We find out about this Wheelchair Gother guy, but we don't really learn his story and much about him yet, necessarily. There is some good stuff here, but apparently Melisukla eventually did summon Zeldris. Zeldris shows up, and now it's oh damn, shit's gonna hit the fan next episode. So I'm pleasantly surprised by this episode, ladies and gentlemen. As I said, when I first saw a couple of stills, I was like, oh, no. How did they do this? Because I warned you guys. I said, just because we had one decently animated, well done, good soundtrack episode, they're only going to put, like, how many are they going to do that to? Are they going to do it for 3 episodes, 5 episodes, half the season? There's no way to know. Every single time we watch, we could be walking into a trash heap, or we could be walking into the best episode of the season. It's impossible. And even as a manga reader, I know where the story's going to lead. I can assume some of my favorite points from the manga, but if they don't handle it properly in the anime, then it's not going to be a good episode now, is it? So from a purely animation and how they handle it standpoint, that's what I'm basically critiquing as whether it's a really good episode or not so much on the story itself. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, what did you all think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Please like, subscribe, comment. As always, it's always very much appreciated. This has been Griever with your behind the bar reviews, except I'm not behind a bar, and I don't know why I said that. I guess it's just habit. Don't forget to hit the bell notification if you guys want to know every single time I drop a video, of course. And we'll see you guys back here next time. Don't forget to, if you are interested in chatting to me personally and talking with other people who subscribe to me and other people who make content and just like to talk about anime and manga and series like this, don't forget to hit the link to join the Discord. Great bunch of guys. There's very little. It's not very big right now, so there's no real problem with any toxicity or anything like that as of yet. So thanks guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.